Hello guys, it's Revolution. So there's been quite a big debate on how much exactly Goku grew in power throughout the Tournament of Power from beginning to end. Some people believe he didn't grow that much, but some people think he grew exponentially high as being as strong in base at the end of the Tournament of Power as he was as a Super Saiyan Blue at the beginning of the Tournament of Power, via the means of Zenkais and Adaptation Boosts throughout the Tournament of Power. But can Goku grow even at a minimum 40,000 times in the space of 48 minutes? What we're going to do is look throughout all the pre-existing lore in Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Super and determine whether Goku did truly get that much stronger throughout the Tournament of Power itself. Not only will we take into account the pre-existing lore from official sources within the Dragon Ball franchise, we'll also look at all the sequences in the Tournament of Power to determine whether the story, the narrative was trying to suggest Goku had received either a Zenkai Boost or an Adaptation Boost in those particular moments. But before we begin, as always, a quick question. Who would win in a fight between Super Saiyan Rage Trunks from the Future Trunks Saga or Ultimate Gohan from the Tournament of Power? Hashtag Trunks or hashtag Gohan down in the comment section and let me know your reasons why. I look forward to reading them. Also, if you're new to the channel and you're not subscribed, do hit that subscribe button and the bell button next to it to be notified about any future content. That big power scaling video on Dragon Ball Super will be out in just over a week's time. Make sure you subscribe to be notified about that video and keep lending the Daishinken your energy. Keep smashing that like button. So obviously Goku's most powerful transformation coming into the Tournament of Power was Super Saiyan Blue. Of course, he can use Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 10 and Kaioken times 20, but ultimately what Kaioken is, stacked on top of Blue, is a technique stacked on top of a transformation that amplifies his Super Saiyan Blue power. So the aim of this video is to find out objectively how much stronger Son Goku grew throughout the Tournament of Power in multiplications over his Super Saiyan Blue transformation. Now, some of the plot devices used to give Saiyans such as Goku and Vegeta power-ups throughout the sagas of Dragon Ball have been things such as training, new transformations, Zenkais, and more recently in Dragon Ball Super, adaptation has really come into play. Now, adaptation and Zenkais are similar, but they are not one and the same. You may remember my video nearly a year ago now comparing and contrasting Zenkais and adaptation in a video called Saiyan Power Zenkai Boosts in Dragon Ball Super, where we discussed those differences. Ultimately, Zenkai Boosts, also known as Saiyan Power Boosts, are ultimately power level increases when a Saiyan experiences a near-death situation and has a full recovery, imprinting on that experience and becoming stronger for it to handle it better the next time, hence a power level boost. This was the favoured plot device in order to justify the Saiyans getting stronger throughout the Planet Namek saga, until Super Saiyan came into play, of course that being a transformation. Now, we didn't hear a lot about Zenkai Boosts after Namek. That's because as a plot device they were ultimately replaced by transformations. However, that doesn't mean that Zenkai Boosts were a non-factor. In the Daizenshu, this is what was stated. Even after the battle with Frieza, formidable enemies surpassing human knowledge appeared one after the other to face Goku. Though the power-ups received after having wounds healed became small, Goku and Co began using transformations and fusions to increase their battle powers to the point where they could no longer be measured numerically. As I mentioned, Zenkais as a plot device were replaced by transformations. Of course, the next transformation after the original Super Saiyan transformation was that of Super Saiyan 2, which we know from the Super Exciting Guides is a 2 times multiplier, which indicates that after Namek, there were no Zenkai boosts that multiplied the Saiyan's power by twice the amount. But for the purpose of simplicity and to be generous, we'll say if he received any kind of Zenkai boost during the Tournament of Power, then he would have got 2 times as strong as what he previously was. Then of course there's adaptation boosts. Now, an adaptation boost is basically a Saiyan imprinting whilst mid-fight and increasing in power mid-fight. In all honesty, it's not something I ever really particularly heard about before Dragon Ball Super's introduction to the franchise, but Toriyama did say in an interview for Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. In the famous interview where he brought up the God scale, he was asked, compared to Beerus, God of Destruction, how strong is Super Saiyan God Goku? And Toriyama replied, I suppose if Beerus' strength is a 10, Super Saiyan God would be right about 6. Only Saiyans, that's an important part guys, only Saiyans rapidly increase in strength as they fight against strong opponents, so the longer they fought, the more that gap would shrink. And it might even be possible for them to eventually turn the tables. Now obviously since the introduction of Dragon Ball Super the anime, the God scale has pretty much become defunct, but in Toriyama's mind there, Beerus wasn't even twice as strong as Super Saiyan God Goku. Once again, of course, that's now defunct and that has completely gone out the window because Beerus is multiple upon multiple times stronger than Super Saiyan God Goku from the Battle of God saga. And of course at that point, the concepts of Super Saiyan Blue and everything that occurred throughout Dragon Ball Super hadn't been conceived of yet. At least not that we know of. But there are other examples in Dragon Ball Super that we can take a look at before the Tournament of Power. Of course, there was his fight against Beerus, but the difference between him and Beerus was far too great. Even upon absorbing the Super Saiyan God's power, he was still no match for Beerus, even despite stacking on Super Saiyan Blue on his very powerful base form. But then there's Resurrection of F, where Golden Frieza was stronger than Goku in Super Saiyan Blue. Now, this fight went on for over 5 minutes, a pretty lengthy fight in Dragon Ball terms. Frieza definitely had the raw power advantage, as admittedly conceded by Goku after 5 minutes of fighting, but this fight was very back and forth. Quite simply put, the difference between Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan Blue Goku during Resurrection of F was not massive. The only reason Goku essentially won that fight was because he outlasted Frieza, because Frieza hadn't trained his new golden state. But there was a gap between them in terms of raw power. Frieza definitely had the advantage, but how big could that gap have been? Like I said, this fight went on for over 5 minutes. Whis told Bulma he would be there in 4 minutes and 13 seconds, and the fight had already started. And then the fight continued after Whis arrived, despite Beerus and Whis being distracted by Champa and Vados. Well, let's take a look back at previous fights in Dragon Ball. In the Majin Buu saga, Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta tried to stall Kid Buu whilst Goku gathered energy for the Spirit Bomb. In the space of a minute, Vegeta as a Super Saiyan 2 was absolutely bludgeoned. Now it's heavily implied that Kid Buu was Super Saiyan 3 Goku level. That's a 4 times difference, and Super Saiyan 2 Vegeta lasted little over a minute against this kind of difference in power. Then of course there's the fight between Gohan and Cell. As a Super Saiyan, Gohan was being outpowered by Cell, but as a Super Saiyan 2, he absolutely demolished Perfect Cell. He only grew 2 times in power due to the Super Saiyan 2 transformation as per the Super Exciting guides, yet Cell was obliterated in moments. Then of course we can go to the infamous fight on Planet Namek between Goku and Frieza of course. Now that fight went on for over 5 minutes, if you take Frieza for his word. Goku had a power level as a Super Saiyan of 150 million, Final Form 100% Frieza had a power level of 120 million. That's a percentage difference, a 25% difference in power. Yet that fight went on for over 5 minutes, which, if you use the pre-existing law in Dragon Ball, could imply that there was only a percentage difference between Golden Frieza and Super Saiyan Blue Goku. Now, whilst Frieza was confident he had the power advantage over Super Saiyan Blue Goku, Goku thought it was pretty close. That's probably because it was. Yet, in a fight spanning over 5 minutes, Goku's adaptation wasn't able to close that gap and turn the tables on Golden Frieza. It was only because he outlasted Frieza that he eventually turned the tables, because Frieza gassed out. And need I remind you that in that interview Toriyama said, only Saiyans rapidly increasing strength. Did that change during the course of Dragon Ball Super? Well, in episode 39, post Resurrection of F Saga, during Goku's fight with the legendary assassin Hit, powering up during battle is the Saiyan speciality. There's no one who could outdo us in our speed at advancing ourselves. Once again, the Resurrection of F Saga has literally just happened. He's also just fought against Frost, who obviously is the same race as Frieza. Of course, Hit had pure progress, so it wasn't quite adaptation in the same manner as Saiyans, but he was able to outgrow Saiyans. Whilst fighting against Super Saiyan Blue, Hit managed to increase his time skip from 0.1 seconds to 0.5 seconds. That's a 5 times increase in time skip. Goku wasn't able to overcome this difference in time skip with Super Saiyan Blue alone through adaptation. He had to use the Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 10. So to overpower Hit's time skip increase of 5 times, Goku increased his power by 10 times. As we know, the Kaioken multiplies all combat abilities by the amount of time stated. Goku said 10 times. But the truth is, Hit didn't even need 0.5 seconds to defeat Super Saiyan Blue Goku. He was already slapping Goku about with 0.2 seconds. However, he did go on to use 0.5 seconds, so let's say he insinuated Goku could eventually grow in power to 0.2 seconds and increased his power and speed by twice the amount. So we'll give Adaptation a 2x boost during the Tournament of Power. Once again, given what Toriyama said in his interview and given the fight against Golden Frieza, this may seem generous in coordinates and consistency with all the pre-existing lore. And then of course there's the Future Trunks saga, where Trunks outright stated in the manga that Goku and Vegeta aren't getting new Zenkai or adaptation boosts anymore in comparison to Goku Black. Now, it wasn't quite stated in the anime, but it was shown. We saw Goku Black in his Super Saiyan Rose form growing far faster than Super Saiyan Blue Goku. So twice as strong for any perceived Zenkai boosts or any perceived adaptation boosts. But of course, if there's any direct statements or feats during the Tournament of Power which indicates a bigger boost, then of course we will follow suit. But of course, we're not just going to give out adaptation boosts for every fight Goku's involved in, because he essentially needs to be in danger for his body to imprint on that experience, for him to grow in power. As stated by Whis in the manga of Dragon Ball Super, when faced with a crisis, Saiyans become stronger. So basically, a Saiyan needs to be in danger for them to increase in power. It's ultimately the stimulus that triggers their adaptation. So of course, that's a lot of information in terms of the pre-existing lore in the franchise before the Tournament of Power, but I feel like it's necessary to know, and you may argue that I'm being generous with these 2x boosts for Zenkais in adaptation. I do actually agree with you, but we want to be as objective as possible and find out if Goku could have grown to the heights that some people believe he did. So what we're going to do, we're going to split the Tournament of Power into 5 parts concerning Goku's involvement in the Tournament of Power. The first part will be the lead up to the Jiren fight, not including the Jiren fight, but the lead up to the Jiren fight, involving all the fights he had from episode 97 to episode 109. Then we are going to look at the second part, which is going to be the Dragon Ball Super specials, episode 109 and 110, including the fight against Kefla, Kale and Kefla. So part 2 is going to be from episode 109 to 116 of Dragon Ball Super. The reason we're going to put the first 2 stages of Ultra Instinct Omen in this same category is simply because in the second fight against Kefla, we're given statements on exactly where Goku lies in terms of power. The third part of this objective assessment, we're going to look at his fights against the Pretty Black Hole, as well as Analyzer. Part 3 is going to be from episode 117 to 121 of Dragon Ball Super. Part 4 will be the rematch against Jiren from episode 122 to episode 128, not including the third stage of Ultra Instinct Omen. So basically Goku and Vegeta taking on Jiren, and obviously Android 17 and Frieza joining in as well. Then of course the 5th and final part will be Ultra Instinct Goku vs Awakened Jiren, and the aftermath of that when Goku, Frieza and 17 take on Jiren. So let's begin. The first major fight Goku pertains in the Tournament of Power is against the Trio of Dangers with his good friend Vegeta. Now we do see Goku eventually use Super Saiyan Blue against these, but ultimately what we know about the Trio of Dangers is they really aren't at Super Saiyan Blue levels. As we saw in the Zen Exhibition match, Basil got slapped up by Majin Buu despite using items to power himself up, which he couldn't use in the Tournament of Power against Goku. He isn't at Majin Buu's level, which basically means he's not even Buu Saga levels of power. And of course there's his brother Lavender, who fought against Gohan, and he fought to a tie against a blind Super Saiyan Gohan. In episode 88, Goku reported to Piccolo that Gohan was nowhere near the level he was at in the Buu Saga. Once again, Lavender is Buu Saga tier at best. Then of course there's the more powerful brother, Bergamo, who basically got more powerful by absorbing Goku's attacks and ultimately using a technique that made him more powerful the more hits he took. But it wasn't his own power, and of course Goku with Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 10 finished him off anyway, but he wasn't able to use this technique in the Tournament of Power, so there's no reason why Goku really needed to use Super Saiyan Blue to knock out the Trio of Dangers, but ultimately it's unlikely he would have gained any adaptation from this particular fight because it simply didn't push him beyond his limits. His next big fight was against Kale in episode 100. Now this is a difficult fight to assess because Kale absolutely battered him in his Super Saiyan Blue form, but we do learn later on in episode 113 that even a tired Super Saiyan 2 Goku can handle Berserk Kale. Now, we do see Goku use Super Saiyan Blue a lot. That's because it has absolute ki control. He could be fighting at Super Saiyan levels in Super Saiyan Blue. He has that much control over his power. But as just mentioned, in episode 113 and 114, Super Saiyan 2 Goku could handle control Berserk Kale and Super Saiyan 2 Kefla at the same time. They did eventually start to overpower him, but then when he transformed into Super Saiyan God, he was simply far too much for Super Saiyan Berserk Kale. And another factor to factor in after that fight against Kale in episode 100 is that Goku wasn't particularly wounded, hurt or fatigued after that fight. The next fight Goku was heavily involved in was that against Dispo in episode 104. Whilst Dispo's speed was giving Hit trouble, upon Goku arriving on the scene and switching between Super Saiyan God and Super Saiyan Blue, Goku was far too much smoke for Dispo with his Super Saiyan Blue transformation. Ultimately, Dispo didn't really push Goku either. Of course, later down the line in the tournament, we would see him unleash his Super Speed mode against Golden Frieza, but he didn't use that here, so we can't apply it. Goku also had a few scuffles with Ribrianne, but as we know, Ribrianne, even at her most powerful, got eliminated by Android 18, and Android 18 simply is not Super Saiyan Blue Goku levels. So in the lead up to the fight against Jiren in episode 109, there aren't that many cases to give Goku an adaptation or Zenkai boost. He simply was never really pushed to the point where he felt he had to use the Kaioken. You could say he got an adaptation boost against Kale, but you really are scraping the barrel as he continued as normal after that fight, didn't show any signs of fatigue or wounds, and didn't think of using the Kaioken against Kale, as well as the fact that eventually we would see him handle controlled Berserk Kale with Super Saiyan 2 and Super Saiyan God. But come episode 109 of Dragon Ball Super, we would finally see Goku face off against Jiren the Grey of Universe 11. Super Saiyan Blue simply got mollywopped by Jiren. Goku even tried to use Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 for the first time against Jiren. However, even that wasn't enough, so he tried to use the Spirit Bomb. Eventually, after failing to use the Spirit Bomb, despite using Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 to push the Spirit Bomb at Jiren, Goku fatigued out and fell into the Spirit Bomb, triggering Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1. Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 was able to compete with this version of Jiren. We stated in episode 110 that Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 was being fueled by the Spirit Bomb. How strong was that Spirit Bomb? It's really hard to tell because throughout the history of Dragon Ball, the Spirit Bombs have all varied in strength and they tend to grow exponentially to fit the purpose of the plot. But it's important to note that this Spirit Bomb didn't actually hit Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 Goku. Jiren was simply toying with Goku and they were engaged in a struggle. Goku burnt out whilst Jiren was far from full power. Jiren was toying with Goku big time. Goku fell into the Spirit Bomb, but because of the fact that Goku was pushing with a strength for Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20, and obviously Jiren had to be pushing back with at least the equivalent of that strength, then you would have to say that this Spirit Bomb resisted the power of 2 Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 power levels, probably a bit more on Jiren's side. So I would say it's twice as strong as Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. A lot of people will disagree. A lot of people have different variations of how powerful the Spirit Bomb is. The reason just specified. So I believe Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 Goku would have been the equivalent to Super Saiyan Blue times 40 in power. Of course, this is a new transformation. This is not his base form, but ultimately Goku competed with Jiren. In fact, you have to argue he landed more hits against this version of Jiren than Jiren landed against him. It wasn't until Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 burnt out that Jiren actually managed to land a hit. Of course, he was suppressed. We know that as the episodes wore on. So did Goku get any Zenkai boosts or adaptation boosts in the initial fight with Jiren in episode 109 and episode 110? Well, in terms of adaptation, Goku certainly was in a crisis situation against Jiren. You could argue that he would have received adaptation boosts during this fight. Of course, he wasn't able to turn the tables against Jiren, but it is important to note that Gohan stated that Goku had more than enough ki left whilst amidst the Genki Dama struggle with Jiren. So in the initial fight with Jiren, Goku simply sensed that Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 wouldn't be enough. He wasn't necessarily out of energy per se, but consider this. Kefla, as a Super Saiyan, was as strong as the Genki Dama in episode 110. That Genki Dama fueled Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1. So therefore, Super Saiyan Kefla was as strong as Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 Goku that fought against Jiren in episode 110. Super Saiyan Kefla had far too much smoke for Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken Goku. There's an argument about what degree of Kaioken Goku was using. I say it was Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. We did see him power it up against Kefla, so it certainly wasn't Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken on its own. And consider this, Whis later goes on to state in episode 118 that each time Ultra Instinct Omen is triggered, he has to be hit harder than ever before. We already know that Jiren was far too strong for Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. Considering the trigger for Ultra Instinct gets deeper and deeper each time it's triggered, Kefla would have had to have hit him with a far greater force, so there's no reason for Goku not to be using Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. If you're going to be stubborn and say that he needs to state which version of Kaioken he's using, well, in the fight against Jiren in episode 123, he doesn't state which version of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken he's using there, so you ultimately have to show the same energy. Quite frankly, this enemy would have demanded the use of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 because they were simply that powerful. Anyway, base Kefla had far too much smoke for Super Saiyan God Goku. How close was she to Super Saiyan Blue? Well, I'm going to say that she was pretty damn close to Super Saiyan Blue Goku in power, even in her base, but not quite there. That's why she triggered Super Saiyan Kefla. We know from Toriyama interviews and the Super Exciting guides that Super Saiyan is a 50 times multiplier, and I know Champa has that big line about not realizing Super Saiyan was so powerful, but then you have to argue, why would Champa know what the multiplier for Super Saiyan is anyway? Sure, he saw it in the God of Destruction tournament, but he wasn't particularly paying attention to what the multiplier is. Even Beerus refers to Super Saiyan as a minor power-up. Was it Super Saiyan Berserk? Well, that's never really been stated anywhere, and pretty much all official sources are calling Kefla's Super Saiyan state Super Saiyan and Super Saiyan 2. Berserk is never mentioned. So even if you add that times 20 Kaioken increase on top of Goku's Super Saiyan Blue power, if its base Kefla was really just a percentage underneath Super Saiyan Blue Goku, triggering the Super Saiyan state as well with the 50 times multiplier, then there's no reason why she wouldn't be able to one-shot Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 Goku, as she did when she took the fight seriously. But ultimately, what it will tell you is that the Genki Dharma, considering that was rivaling Kefla's Super Saiyan power, couldn't have been any more really than 2 times Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20, as that would have took the Genki Dharma past Super Saiyan Kefla's power, which we know rivaled each other. So the Spirit Bomb was likely around a 2 times boost over Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. You could argue it was a little bit smaller, but it weren't much greater. But what this should ultimately tell you is that between the fight against Jiren in episode 110 as Ultra Instinct Omen, and the fight against Kefla in episode 115 and 116 with Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2, Goku didn't surpass the power of that Spirit Bomb, which couldn't really be that much more than 2 times his Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 power. And considering he got one-shotted when Super Saiyan Kefla took that fight seriously, then it's highly unlikely Goku grew at all. Of course, you can argue Goku was fatigued, but ultimately, upon attaining Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2, Kefla responded by turning Super Saiyan 2, which, as we know from the Super Exciting guides, is a 2 times multiplier over Super Saiyan. But the cold, hard facts are that in terms of raw power, Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2 was not as strong as Super Saiyan 2 Kefla. During Kefla's final attack, Master Roshi stated that if one of those attacks hit Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2 Goku, not even Goku could survive, and Goku very nearly got clipped. Of course, Goku used Ultra Instinct to his advantage, used his speed and dodge hacks to ultimately arrive at point blank range and hit Kefla with a Kamehameha, pushing her off the stage. Now, I have heard some people try to use that as a reason for Goku with Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2 being stronger than Super Saiyan 2 Kefla, but you need to remember that Kefla was laughing off Goku's attacks, and ultimately, if Goku could have overpowered her, then he didn't need to dodge all Kefla's attacks. He could have just hit with a Kamehameha from there, entered a beam struggle and overpowered her that way. He chose to dodge her attacks because he couldn't overpower her. He chose to hit her from point blank range because that was the only way to eliminate her. So did Goku get stronger against Kefla? As we proved, he didn't really get any stronger from his fight against Jiren. Well, there isn't anything to go against Goku getting stronger. There's nothing for it either, but let's be generous and give him that 2 times adaptation boost from his fights against Jiren and Kefla combined. So finally, we have a legitimate, objective reason to give Goku an adaptation boost. So right now, Goku would be twice as strong as what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power in Super Saiyan Blue. On to part 3, when Goku took on the Pretty Black Hole in episode 118. Of course, he had to use Super Saiyan Blue whilst fatigued to ultimately escape this Pretty Black Hole. Now, this scene particularly was quite weird because Android 17 has demonstrated it being somewhere close to Super Saiyan Blue levels multiple times throughout this tournament. Android 18 isn't, but at the same time, it's Super Saiyan Blue Goku that stands up and uses a Kamehameha to escape the Pretty Black Hole, The way to the black hole itself is not impressive, but what is impressive is that Goku's Kamehameha was fast enough to escape a black hole. Light cannot escape a black hole. This is a massively faster than light speed feat, especially when you take into consideration that Goku was already inside the black hole, not in the event horizon, and that Kamehameha literally got out of there and eliminated the people utilizing this attack in seconds. Whilst Goku didn't use Blue Kaioken for this particular feat, Whis did make a statement regarding Ultra Instinct, and that Ultra Instinct requires his limits to be broken further than ever before. So I'm going to be a little generous again and say that Goku could have got 2 times stronger from this particular feat and this particular struggle. He may have adapted in this situation as he'd never encountered a black hole in the continuity of Dragon Ball before. So let's apply that 2 times boost on top of his already 2 times boost from his fights against Kefla, then Goku would be 4 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the tournament. On to the next fight against Analarza. Now Goku only used Super Saiyan God against regular Analarza, but obviously upon Analarza utilizing his wings and pretty much going to destroy the arena, it took several Super Saiyan Blue level characters to hold back winged Analarza, and they even stated that they were being pushed back against winged Analarza. So you could say that winged Analarza was stronger than the 5 Universe 7 warriors trying to push back Analarza's attack. Of course, Android 17 burrowed through Analarza's attack and eventually broke the weakness of Analarza, which ultimately defeated Analarza, but it was suggested that Analarza had the raw power advantage. Once again, Goku did not use Blue Kaioken, but he may have been too fatigued to do so at that particular point in time, but he was at least pushed. So let's be generous again and give him another 2 times boost. That would make him 8 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power. That brings us on to part 4 of analysing the Tournament of Power. Of course, this starts with Universe 7 fighting against Universe 11, and of course Goku in particular took on Jiren the Grey again in the Tournament of Power. In episode 122 of Dragon Ball Super, Goku and Vegeta as Super Saiyan Blues take on Jiren the Grey, and Vegeta states, "I've never encountered an energy as strong and heavy as this." If you refuse to take Shin the Supreme Kai of Universe 7 for his word in episode 110, when he states that Jiren's the strongest being they've come across, then this is solid confirmation as Vegeta fought against Merge Zamasu in the Future Trunks arc. However, there are many power scalers who use this particular statement to indicate that Super Saiyan Blue Goku and Vegeta, because they are fighting against this level of Jiren, to be above Super Saiyan 2 Kefla and above any Ultra Instinct Omen we've seen before in Super Saiyan Blue alone. However, this is lazy power scaling, because in the very same episode, episode 122, 3 minutes later, Goku states that Jiren was fighting with more power earlier, indicating his fight against Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 Goku in episode 110. Now, I've seen the most utterly ridiculous argument where somebody's tried to claim that Vegeta was referring to Goku Blue earlier in this episode. However, his fight against Goku earlier in this episode is technically the same fight against Vegeta in this episode, because Goku and Vegeta keep jumping in on each other. It's essentially the same fight. Whis even notes that Vegeta is trying to attain Ultra Instinct. Well, if he was more powerful than Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 all along, he would have had no problem swatting aside the likes of Toppo only a few episodes prior, who was only Super Saiyan Blue level as per the Zeno exhibition match. This lazy, mental gymnastics, deranged fanboy tier of power scaling takes each statement from the show, only looks at face value, removes any kind of context, and doesn't consider what it would mean for the rest of the series, and casts aside any level of consistency. Vegeta's statement about Jiren's strength being heavier than any he's felt before was referring to Jiren's full power, the potential power he felt from Jiren. We know Dragon Ball characters can sense the higher power of characters even if they aren't demonstrating that full power just yet. But quite simply put, he was also referring to Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1. Jiren wasn't fighting at that level he was fighting against Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 in episode 110, so therefore he wasn't even fighting at the level that Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2 Goku and Super Saiyan 2 Kefla were in episode 116. Suffice to say, Vegeta also sensed the higher potential within Jiren's power, which would have surpassed both those instances, and which we would eventually find out did surpass both those instances when he demonstrated his full power or close to full power from episode 127 to episode 130. Of course, later in that episode, Vegeta would use the final flash, a power amping move that can amp the power of the move beyond the user's actual full power. Now, a lot of people freaked out about how high Vegeta's power rose during this attack, so I would be inclined to say that the power of this attack surpassed even that of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20. Now, some people say that it's as powerful as the Genki Dama in episode 110 because it knocked Jiren down, but Vegeta goaded Jiren into taking that attack head on without blocking it. Jiren did not let the Genki Dama in episode 110 hit him just as he let the final flash hit him because he was using this as a demonstration of his own strength. Later on in episode 125, Jiren actually blocks the Blue Evolution final flash, which would be more powerful than the final flash we're talking about now. So he clearly could have blocked it if he wanted to, just as he blocked the Genki Dama. So I don't believe the final flash was as powerful as the Genki Dama, which powered Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1. And for the record, that's not to say that he couldn't have tanked the Genki Dama as well. The Genki Dama may have knocked him down just like the final flash did, but ultimately it probably wouldn't have been enough to eliminate Jiren from the tournament. After that final flash, Jiren completely squashes Vegeta and Super Saiyan Blue Goku steps up and fights against Jiren. With Vegeta looking down and out for the moment, Goku steps up and fights against Jiren for the remainder of episode 122 and 123. Now, we see Goku utilize a lot of strategy here. He uses instant transmission a lot to get in close and then run away. This is stated by pretty much everybody in the crowd, and even the two Omni Kings state that Goku is using strategy. He is not taking Jiren on in terms of power against power. In fact, every time he does get close enough for Jiren to land on him, Jiren pummels him, but he continues to run away and utilize strategy. In fact, in the end, after using the key mines, he eventually uses the Hexoblade attack that Krillin used on him as a Super Saiyan in episode 84. If you remove context from these situations, it would seem that Krillin in episode 84 is as strong as Super Saiyan Goku. That's not the case. He spends the entire time running away from Goku, but ultimately catches Goku off guard by one of his Hexoblades, taking the floor away from Goku's feet as a Super Saiyan. There was no demonstration of Krillin overpowering Super Saiyan Goku. That's because he couldn't. Well, Goku almost eliminated Jiren in episode 123. In fact, Jiren was falling off the stage itself, but we already know that Goku in terms of raw power is not even close to Jiren at this particular point. This was simply Goku utilizing strategy. If martial arts had nothing to do with Dragon Ball, every single encounter would simply be one beam struggle against another to determine who's the strongest, end of fight. But Dragon Ball has always been about martial arts. They may be superpowered beings, but ultimately there are other ways to win. Of course, Jiren manages to get back on the stage after this Hexoblade attack and ultimately starts to demonstrate a hint of his full power, and one of his key enhanced punches scares Goku out of Super Saiyan Blue. Once again, it's important to note that this attack didn't actually hit Goku, but what confusingly happens after this is Jiren then lands an onslaught on base Goku. These aren't key enhanced punches, but Goku goes on to state that these are the strongest attacks Goku has ever felt. However, this seems like death of the author to me, because simply he wouldn't be able to take the strongest attacks he's ever felt in his base form, especially as moments earlier we've just seen him take attacks whilst in Super Saiyan Blue, where he has Super Saiyan Blue levels of defense. He simply doesn't have that level of defense in base. Now, that doesn't mean he got a Super Saiyan Blue level Zenkai from being scared of an attack. Like I said, it's most likely death of the author, or he was referring to that key enhanced punch that didn't actually hit him. But you could argue that whilst the attack didn't directly hit him, he did feel the power of the attack as it brushed by his cheek. In fact, you even see a mark on his cheek after the attack passed him by, and he literally falls out of Super Saiyan Blue. And he does use the word attack as well, a singular term rather than attacks, which is what he was hit in by base. He was hit by a multitude of attacks. But because of this, Jiren senses a rise in Jiren. He states that he's not seen Jiren like this in quite some time. So this version of Jiren is the strongest version of Jiren we have seen yet. But he is still capable of suppressing himself. Remember, killing is not allowed in this tournament. He cannot go all out. Despite Goku proclaiming that those were the strongest attacks he's ever felt, he still has enough energy left to use Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken. Like I said, this episode he doesn't state which version of Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken he's using, but it's most likely Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 because Jiren is an enemy that warrants this level of power. Beerus also states that Goku is now going to give it all that he has, and all that he has at this point is Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20, as he cannot access Ultra Instinct Omen or Master Ultra Instinct at will. Vegeta also uses Super Saiyan Blue Evolution for the first time, and they fight simultaneously against Jiren. Whilst they are still overpowered against Jiren, their lack of coordination is throwing Jiren off, at least giving them somewhat of an edge in the fight. And even Jiren notes that Goku and Vegeta's punches have both gotten sharper. Is he referring to the fact that they've now utilised stronger forms, or is he referring to the fact that they've gotten stronger? It's really hard to tell, so let's be generous and say that from the fights in episode 122 and 123, that Goku and Vegeta both got stronger. They both got 2 times stronger due to their adaptation. Obviously, we're only really looking at Goku here. That would make Goku 16 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power. Now, to increase his base power 16 times in the course of a fight is unprecedented post-Namek. But I guess you can say in the Tournament of Power, they were under extreme circumstances. And of course, this would make Goku's Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 much stronger than Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 1 from episode 110, and quite possibly stronger than Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 2 from episode 116, if you were to believe that he was getting these 2 times adaptation boosts from all the fights we've mentioned. Now, in episode 124 and 125, they continued to fight against Jiren, who is stated to be using more power than he's ever used, but Jiren is still overpowering both Goku and Vegeta. Both Goku and Vegeta state that Jiren isn't tiring, whilst they are referencing the fact that they are fatiguing out fighting against Jiren. Fatigue is still a thing in Dragon Ball, guys. Goku is using Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken intermittently. Vegeta is able to stay in Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, but eventually Goku manages to get Jiren in a full Nelson, and Vegeta uses the final flash whilst in Super Saiyan Blue Evolution. As I mentioned earlier, Jiren tanks this attack using his eyes to block the Super Saiyan Blue Evolution final flash. This will be stronger than the attack we saw in episode 122, of course. Jiren is taking this fight way more seriously than he was back then, but what must be noted is he is no longer letting these attacks hit him, because these attacks would be able to cause harm to Jiren in terms of power. They are at a percentage of his power now. As we see later on, Android 17 is able to hurt Jiren if you catch him off guard. He isn't letting these attacks hit him directly anymore. Now, this particular fight wouldn't really continue until Vegeta's gone off to fight God of Destruction Toppo. Vegeta, using his Super Saiyan Blue Evolution, would actually get stronger whilst fighting against God of Destruction Toppo. But let's say from that initial fight with Goku and Vegeta versus Jiren in episode 124 to 126, that Goku would once again get twice as strong through adaptation. This would make him 32 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power. Of course, in episode 127, Jiren would power up yet again and show somewhat closer to his actual full power. He's gone beyond showing a hint of his full power at this point. He would fight against 17, a fatigued Super Saiyan Blue Evolution Vegeta and Super Saiyan Blue Kaioken times 20 Goku, and even Golden Frieza would jump in now and again. And once again, Jiren walloped all of them, all whilst fighting them at the same time. But he does take them seriously, as when they do a tri-attack on him using the final flash, this Kamehameha and the Android 17 beam attack, he really does power up to block that attack. And as we see, Android 17 is able to wound Jiren whilst catching him off guard, and even Frieza managed to knock Jiren down whilst catching him off guard as well, even though he would then go on to pummel Golden Frieza. This scurry of battles between Universe 7 and Jiren would eventually lead up into 128, where Goku would once again attain Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 3 that being. So let's say Goku got twice as strong again through adaptation from that fight in episode 127 and early 128. That would make him 64 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power. That's an incredible rise in power and far surpasses the Zenkai boost he got during the Namek saga. Now, during episode 129, he fought against full power Jiren with Ultra Instinct Omen Phase 3, and then at the end of episode 129, he triggered complete Ultra Instinct and fought against Jiren at the end of episode 129 and in episode 130 of Dragon Ball Super. Jiren would unleash Awaken Jiren, and Goku would have to find another level in Ultra Instinct to bring down Jiren, which he did. However, the toll of the State of the Gods would take its toll on Goku's mortal body, and Goku would lose Ultra Instinct. However, that was not the end of Goku vs Jiren, because in episode 131, despite appearing to have been beaten by Ultra Instinct Goku, Jiren managed to muster up the awakened energy once again, and seemed like he was overpowering Android 17 and Golden Frieza together. Golden Frieza even fell out of his golden state and reverted back to final form Frieza. Base Goku would step in, and it would appear from face value that Base Goku, Final Form Frieza and Android 17 overpowered Awakened Jiren. But that's at face value. Some people are trying to peddle the fact that this means that Base Goku is as strong as a third of Ultra Instinct Goku. Utterly ridiculous. To insinuate so would suggest that Final Form Frieza was as strong as Golden Frieza despite just falling out of the form. It would also suggest that base Goku, had he turned Super Saiyan, would be significantly stronger than Awakened Jiren. Not only this, but considering that Android 17 himself is only around blue levels in terms of raw power, give or take. Golden Frieza is around Super Saiyan blue level powers, and he wasn't even in the golden state when they pushed back Jiren at this point. But if Goku was to be at Awakened Jiren level, because he would need to be pretty damn close to it considering how much stronger Awakened Jiren is than Final Form Frieza and Android 17, then that would put base Goku close to Awakened Jiren and thus as strong as Beerus in base. But we know from many interviews leading up to the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie that Goku, even with Super Saiyan Blue, is not at Beerus' level yet. At this point, Jiren, Frieza and Goku are all suffering badly from fatigue, and Android 17 is suffering badly from injuries. But the director who worked on episode 131 literally put what the glass breaking effect of this particular moment was into perspective. Ishitani stated that when Goku stood before Jiren once again, Jiren fully recovered his fighting spirit, and Jiren considered fighting with his full power to be the greatest way of honouring his opponent. He ceased that current attack simply because he wanted a second chance to fight against Goku again in hand-to-hand combat, which he did. Quite simply put, Goku was nowhere near Ultra Instinct levels of power in his base during this sequence. Golden Frieza doesn't get stronger when he devolves into his final form, so Goku and Frieza take on Jiren in hand-to-hand combat, whereas Android 17 kind of sits back and just shoots energy blasts from behind. This is because Android 17 is suffering from injuries and is pretty much incapacitated, but we know he's an infinite model android, so he can still send Super Saiyan Blue level of key attacks. Now, when base Goku and Final Form Frieza front up this version of Jiren, Android 17 sending his blasts from behind, people have tried to say that Android 17's blasts had less effect than base Goku's attacks and Final Form Frieza's. That is not the case. Only Final Form Frieza lands a hit on Jiren before Android 17 does, and Android 17's key blasts send Jiren flying backwards. Goku's attacks and Frieza's attacks have very little impact at all. In fact, after Android 17 lands 4 energy blasts on Jiren, sending him back into the time dial on the Tournament of Power stage, Goku and Frieza literally land a hit at the same time on Jiren, and he absolutely tanks it, pretty much proving that Goku and Frieza's attacking potency at this point isn't any higher than Android 17's key blasts. Why are Android 17's attacks having such an effect on Jiren at this point? Because he's an infinite model android. He is still as strong at this point as he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power in terms of attacking potency, but obviously, like I said, he's heavily injured at this point. He cannot compete in hand-to-hand combat, but he can still send energy blasts as he does. Goku and Frieza would then proceed to push Jiren off of the Tournament of Power stage and eliminating him from the Tournament of Power. Goku is somewhat turning into a Super Saiyan, and obviously Frieza's still in his final form state. Does this mean that they're as strong as Jiren in Super Saiyan and final form Frieza? That would mean Super Saiyan 2 Goku and Golden Frieza are much stronger than Jiren. The truth is, they are simply fatigued all to varying degrees, and Jiren is heavily fatigued at this point. Even in the manga, it's made note that Jiren is fatigued after his battle against Ultra Instinct Goku. Jiren is stupendously powerful, but he's not an infinite energy being like Android 17. He's much more powerful than Android 17, has much higher levels of attacking potency than Android 17, but he doesn't have infinite energy. He can fatigue. Okay, so to put this all into perspective, let's say he once again got a 2x adaptation boost from going Ultra Instinct and fighting against Jiren. That would put him at 128 times what he was at the start of the Tournament of Power. And then let's say he got another adaptation boost in episode 131 after fighting Jiren again in his base. That would make him 256 times stronger than what he was at the beginning of the Tournament of Power. Does that even remotely make him Super Saiyan Blue levels? No, it simply wouldn't even surpass the beginning of the Tournament of Power Super Saiyan 3 Goku. We know that Super Saiyan 3 is a 400 times base multiplier as per the Super Exciting guides. Now, by no means am I putting this kind of level of growth down at all, because getting 250 times stronger during a 48-minute tournament is an incredible boost in power. but Super Saiyan Blue is potentially a 40,000 times base multiplier at a low ball. Now, I also know that I was very generous with some of these adaptation boosts. Not all adaptation boosts yield 2 times multipliers, so it's highly unlikely that he hasn't even gotten that much stronger. But once again, even getting 2 times stronger during a 40-minute tournament would be considered quite impressive. Of course, it's highly unlikely Toriyama and the writing team are actually putting numbers on how many times Goku got stronger. Of course, it's going to be exponential growth, but once again, if you can't put a number on it, then it's simply your headcanon, your theory. Does Goku get major Zenkai boosts after coming out of Ultra Instinct? Very possible, but don't you think they would have made a plot point of it if this was to be the case? It was simply never mentioned or even suggested in the main source material itself or in any interviews. For example, when Goku absorbed the power of the Super Saiyan God, it was made a key point of the narrative to make sure you understood that Goku received some of that power, if not all that power, of Super Saiyan God in Battle of Gods. No such thing was done here. Could it be done in the future? Possibly, I guess, but given that we've had the Dragon Ball Super Broly movie and the Moro arc in the manga, where nothing of this kind has even been remotely suggested. In fact, we still know that Jiren, Broly and Beerus are all still stronger than Super Saiyan Blue, Goku and Vegeta. That a Super Saiyan Blue level Zenkai in a Tournament of Power is unlikely, considering that the Ultra Instinct Omen phases were actually not that far apart from each other. So quite frankly put, the pre-existing lore of the Dragon Ball franchise does not support this kind of growth during the Tournament of Power. That's not to say that they didn't grow, but they certainly aren't at Super Saiyan Blue levels from the beginning of the Tournament of Power at the end of the Tournament of Power, in their base forms. Now, I also must make this clear, if Toriyama wanted to make somebody a million times stronger at a whim, he can do that. This is his verse, he has the power to do so. But his way of construing this story to you is by telling it through the story. So if he hasn't done that, then it is simply your headcanon, your theory. The burden of proof lies with you to prove your claim. If you cannot do it, you cannot assert it. If you try to do it without being able to prove your point, then you're just a bad power scaler. There is nothing wrong with putting something out as theory, just don't try to assert it and lie to who you're talking to. Your theory may be proven right somewhere down the line, but it might not be. But I would heavily suggest basing all your assertions on the information present at the date you make that assertion. Any new information can then be taken on board, and you can then deconstruct and reconstruct your assertions from there forth. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. If you think I missed something, do let me know down in the comment section. It's been a long video. If you made it to this point, congratulations. It's taken me a long time to make this video, a bit too long. Expect shorter videos in the future. Please do hit the like button and share this video with any of the power scalers you know. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Until next time, Ad Astra.